Republicans' signature bill is the ultimate betrayal of the American people. It betrays every single family who will lose health insurance. It betrays our financial future. It betrays our children and grandchildren who will pay for these billionaire tax breaks as the debt rises and rises. It betrays every family worried about paying for groceries, the mortgage, the rent, prescription drugs. All are going up because of Donald Trump and his administration. Every price of these is going up.
Donald Trump lo está haciendo de nuevo, traicionando a los mismos estadounidenses que él juró proteger. Señores, hoy vamos a hablar de lo que muchos clasifican como la traición más brutal al sueño americano. Y son estos recortes de Trump. Recortes que dejarán a millones sin seguro médico, que aumentarán la deuda nacional. Y lógico, ¿no? Beneficiarán a sus amiguitos millonarios. Pero más allá del discurso político, vamos a analizar por qué esta movida es peligrosa, es cínica y sobre todo es profundamente injusta. Quiero que empecemos escuchando al demócrata Chuck Schumer advirtiendo sobre los recortes y el desastre que traerá este presupuesto republicano. Y todo desde el Congreso de los Estados Unidos. Escuchemos.
Mr. President, today we got the news that the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, confirms Donald Trump's big, ugly betrayal is going to kick at least 10 million Americans off their health insurance and spike our national debt by another $3.4 trillion. In truth, the number of people who will lose health insurance could be much higher, as many as 16 million when you account for the cuts to ACA and other forms of insurance. This finalized independent analysis from the CBO confirms it. Republicans' signature bill is the ultimate betrayal of the American people. It betrays every single family who will lose health insurance. It betrays our financial future. It betrays our children and grandchildren who will pay for these billionaire tax breaks as the debt rises and rises. It betrays every family worried about paying for groceries, the mortgage, the rent, prescription drugs. All are going up because of Donald Trump and his administration. Every price of these is going up. And it betrays every rural community from benefits of good-paying energy jobs. Republicans' supposed signature bill betrays everyone outside of the billionaire class and the special interests. Now Republicans are going to spin the mother of all propaganda jobs to sell this ugly bill to the American people. But today's report reminds us of something. Facts are stubborn, and the facts are clear. The big ugly betrayal is a loser for the country and be a loser for the Republicans. And the Republicans can yak when they go back home. But when people lose their jobs, when people's bills go up, when they're paying more, when they're losing their health insurance, that's reality. And no amount of propaganda, no amount of going home and telling people how great this is will undo the actual damage that will be done to the American people. And we know that they will realize the Republicans have betrayed them. On appropriations. This week, the Senate's expected to take up the first set of appropriation bills for fiscal year 2026. On the substance, a number of the bills negotiated in committee make significant reversal of DOJ's horrible cuts. Of particular importance are the reversals these bills make to DOJ's cuts to veteran programs, which was so vicious and so mean and hurts so many veterans. And it also makes reversals on other important Democratic priorities. We'll see how Republican leaders plan to move forward with these bills and other bipartisan bills on the floor. Yet yesterday, the Republican leader gave an interview where he said he'd like to see more bipartisanship when it comes to appropriations. He said rightly that it takes cooperation from both sides to move things through the Senate in the appropriations bills. But frankly, the Republican leader is talking a bit out of both sides of his mouth. On the one hand, he talks about bipartisanship and wanting to see both parties come up with the appropriations process. On the other, he's putting on the floor rescission packages with cuts demanded by Donald Trump and Russell Vought that retract many of the bipartisan agreements, with the promise by Russell Vogt of more to come. When Donald Trump and Russell Vogt insist on rescissions, and an obedient Republican Congress goes along, even though many of them know how wrong it is, it makes the spending process totally partisan. So the leader's words and his actions are a complete contradiction. He can't have it both ways. Again, not 1 week ago, Republicans jammed a rescission package through this chamber, axing billions of bipartisan funding to public broadcast and foreign aid, purely on a party line vote. Less than a day later, Russell Vogt comes out and says the appropriations process should be, quote, less bipartisan, unquote. Frankly, I don't want to hear Republicans grouse about Democrats if they're going to give people like Russell Vogt a free pass to trash the good work that takes place in this chamber. And now, of course, there are reports that Donald Trump and Russell Vogt want Congress to greenlight another recessions package in the near future. Then there's Donald Trump's big ugly betrayal, a purely party line vote, a partisan giveaway to billionaires and special interests, paid for with the biggest cuts to health care, food funding, and good-paying energy jobs we've seen in our lifetimes. So Leader Thune says he wants to see bipartisanship. That's all well and good. But Leader Thune can't have it both ways. If Leader Thune wants to talk about bipartisanship, he should focus on keeping his side of the street clean first, because Donald Trump and Russell Vogt have made clear they want to continue launching partisan broadsides that will inflict deep harm on the American people, raising costs, unleashing chaos, inviting even deeper corruption across the federal government.
Lo que acaban de escuchar no es una simple crítica partidista, amigos. Hablamos de una advertencia directa sobre este plan que va a poner en riesgo la salud, el bienestar, la estabilidad económica de millones de personas. Él lo clasifica, ¿no? La gran y fea traición, con mucha razón. Según la Oficina de Presupuesto del Congreso de los Estados Unidos, hablamos de una fuente independiente, no es un blog progresista, no es un portal de noticias, no señores. Al menos 10 millones de personas podrían perder su seguro de salud. Ahora bien, si tomamos en cuenta los recortes a la ley del cuidado de salud asequible y otras pólizas que existen, fácilmente este número podría llegar hasta 16 millones. 16 millones de personas dejadas a su suerte. ¿Para qué? Para financiar enormes recortes de impuestos para los más ricos. Para premiar a los mismos intereses especiales que ya dominan Washington. O sea que esto no es una política de austeridad, señores. No es una reforma fiscal responsable. Es un robo. Es un robo con corbata y con una sonrisa falsa. Y lo peor es que los más afectados no serán los que viven en Manhattan o en Beverly Hills, no amigos. Serán las familias rurales, serán los veteranos que ya luchan con servicios deficientes. Serán las madres solteras, los adultos mayores. Hablamos de gente real, con vidas reales, del día a día, que dependen de programas como el Medicaid para simplemente sobrevivir. Donald Trump y sus aliados en el Congreso están impulsando medidas, este tipo de medidas, mientras te venden la idea de que quieren bipartidismo. Pero como dice Schumer, no se puede hablar de unidad mientras tú impulsas recortes partidistas escritos a pedido de Russell Vogt, el mismo operador de extrema derecha detrás del plan de desmantelar el Estado federal desde adentro. Sé que algunos podrían decir que esto es simplemente política, ¿no? Que el presupuesto se negocia cada año. Señores, no es un presupuesto común, así de simple. Es un manifiesto ideológico, una hoja de ruta para destruir todo lo que representa un apoyo público a los más vulnerables. Y claro, luego vendrán las excusas, ¿no? Que es culpa del déficit, que hay que hacer sacrificios. Pero siempre que hay sacrificios, adivinen quién termina sacrificándose. No son los que tienen jets privados, ni cuentas en los paraísos fiscales. Eres tú. Es el ciudadano común. Ahora bien, amigos, quiero que hablemos de una de las señales más alarmantes del autoritarismo que ha estado demostrando la administración de Trump. Y es el uso del Departamento de Justicia como si fuese un buffet personal. Y no, señores, no es una exageración. O sea, es una distopía hecha realidad. El despido de fiscales por parte del Departamento de Justicia de Trump nos está demostrando un estado autoritario. Lo que van a escuchar es tan grave que, señores, fácilmente pueden sacar una serie en Netflix sobre dictaduras.
Joining us now, New York Law School professor and former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney Rebecca Roiphe, the Washington Post national reporter and MSNBC contributor Carol Leonnig, and David French is back with us. Carol, this is not normal. Explain what is happening and why.
Katie, you're exactly right. It's not normal. It's actually dystopian and bizarre for the Department of Justice and the FBI folks to be on pins and needles about getting a letter from Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, telling them that under the Article 2 powers of the president, they're gone. This has put a lot of people on fear and on edge since the afternoon of Donald Trump's inauguration, when these removals, transfers, and firings began. And let's not forget, this all started that day with a series of prosecutors and lead officials in the Department of Justice learning that they were going to be transferred out of their jobs to be in charge of a non-existent office called Sanctuary Cities Enforcement, an office that didn't exist, didn't have a phone number, didn't have any employees. And those people had a lot of experience in protecting our nation, protecting us from foreign interference, and they were gone. And there's been a slew of folks afterwards. The result and the consequence of this, Katie, is that people are on pins and needles in their offices. Sources that I've spoken to, on all sorts of secret methods, are petrified of actually bringing forward cases that might at some point irritate or offend the president or anyone in his inner circle. And that is what might actually lead to paralysis in this very important law enforcement agency.
What does that mean, not to want to anger Donald Trump? What sort of cases might they not be pursuing? Is it potentially corrupt conduct within the administration, or is it potentially corrupt or fraudulent conduct among Donald Trump's donors or friends? What sort of stuff might they now feel nervous to pursue?
Runs the gamut, Katie, and a great question. Everything from, for example, what if you were looking at an insider trading case involving someone who had knowledge of Donald Trump's announcements about tariffs, which he then pulled back? Are you going to investigate a huge hijacking of our trading rules in this country if you're in the FBI or the Department of Justice? Maybe not. What about the gutting, the basic gutting of the public integrity section, which many prosecutors who were basically, either transferred out of that department or summarily removed after the dismissal of the New York Mayor Eric Adams case? What about any of those ongoing cases that they have been investigating of public corruption? You really think Donald Trump wants to see a case come to the Attorney General about a public official that he might like who is on the take? Probably not.
It doesn't sound like that's the country that we're used to living in, Rebecca.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, one of the core principles of prosecution is that prosecutors don't pick the people that they want to prosecute, but rather the cases that they want to bring to justice. And so it's not about choosing who you like and who you don't like. And one of the concerns here, as we were just expressing, is that instead of picking generally cases that are important, crimes that are important to prosecute, instead we're going to have a core, kind of peace corps of forces that are going after certain people and not going after certain people because of their relationship with the president. And that is, very troubling because it's something that is a hallmark of an authoritarian state, not a liberal democracy like the one.
Let me just read a couple things that have been happening just recently. The DOJ did not give a reason for why they fired Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter, just summarily dismissed. That's what we know as of now. Former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey are both under criminal investigation for potential wrongdoing in the Trump-Russia probe. This happened today. AG Bondi released files to Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley related to the FBI's handling of the investigation into ... Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server and mishandling of classified information during her time as Secretary of State. This has been done before. This has been gone through. The FBI went through it in 2016.
Right. I mean, and it's exactly why we have these civil service protections whereby normally a president doesn't go in and fire these career prosecutors. They're protected by civil service protections that were put in place particularly to combat a kind of cronyism that would lead to these situations in which you would have somebody in political power who is using the power of prosecution, the vast power of prosecution, to go after their enemies and save their friends. And so, what's particularly concerning is that kind of cronyism in the hands of prosecutors have so much power to ruin somebody's life, easily before a court could even be involved.
It's not just perceived political enemies, David. It's also certain cases that they don't agree with or they don't seem to agree with, doesn't align with their agenda. And one of the things that comes to mind, also news out today, is the Breonna Taylor case, the woman who was shot and killed during a botched police raid a few years back. DOJ under Joe Biden prosecuted the officers involved in this. They killed an innocent woman. Under Donald Trump, one of the guys who was set to be sentenced could have gotten a life sentence. Well, the prosecutors under Trump are recommending 1 day in prison.
Yeah, 1 day in prison. Now, this officer fired 10 shots into Breonna Taylor's apartment, did not hit Breonna Taylor. So I think the idea that he would have gotten a life sentence was completely wrong. It would have been substantially less than that. But here's what's interesting, Katie. Previously, what we've seen in the DOJ distortions is we've seen Trump going after personal enemies and rewarding personal loyalists. So the January 6th rioters who were granted pardons or clemency, those are personal loyalists. When he fires like James Comey's daughter, that's in a daughter of a hated enemy. So you can always tie these things, or previously you've generally been able to tie them to something personal to Trump. But where the perversion gets even worse is when the bias becomes not just personal, but categorical. So categorically, we have seen a terrible mistreatment of immigrant detainees. We've seen them subjected to conditions, sometimes in overseas prisons, that would violate the 8th Amendment if applied in the United States of America. And then here we have an example of a police officer who was fired and prosecuted. And when he was fired, the head of the Louisville Police Department said that his actions shocked the conscience, should shock our conscience. Prosecuted successfully. And now what? He gets a slap on the wrist. The Trump Department of Justice is seeking a slap on the wrist. So this is where you start to get really concerned. Is there categorical favoritism for favored populations and categorical hostility against disfavored populations? And that is what the Civil Rights Division is supposed to stand fundamentally against. Yeah. And now it's an instrument of bias rather than combating bias.
David, it's so good to have you on this. Same with you, Carol, and you, Rebecca. Appreciate it.
Amigos, fácilmente esto puede ser una denuncia de cómo Trump ha convertido el Departamento de Justicia en, hablamos de una de las instituciones más poderosas del país, en una herramienta para proteger aliados y castigar enemigos. ¿Cómo lo hizo? Fácil. Lo vimos desde el primer día de su presidencia. Comenzó el tema de los despidos masivos de fiscales y funcionarios del Departamento de Justicia. Pero aquí viene el dato interesante, no eran despidos por bajo rendimiento, ¿no? O por temas de corrupción, digamos. No, señores, se trataba de personas que tienen años de experiencia en luchar contra la corrupción, en defender la integridad electoral, en investigar interferencias extranjeras, ojo con eso, Todos ellos fueron reemplazados o hasta desplazados a oficinas fantasmas, literalmente a oficinas que ni siquiera existen. ¿Cuál es el mensaje detrás de todo esto? Si investigas algo que no me conviene, te vas. Esto no es normal. Eso no es política partidista. Eso es una alerta roja para cualquier democracia. Por un segundo imaginen que un fiscal quiere investigar a un donante millonario de Trump por fraude financiero, digamos. ¿Se atrevería a hacerlo si es que sabe que su carrera puede terminar al día siguiente? Y no hablemos del caso, ¿no?, de la hija de James Comey, despedida sin razón aparente, mientras que Trump presionaba para reabrir investigaciones contra Hillary Clinton, a pesar de que son investigaciones que se han cerrado hace años. Todo esto, amigos, rompe por completo los principios de neutralidad que tiene que tener el sistema judicial. Ustedes recuerdan el caso de Breonna Taylor. Es un caso que no fue muy amplio, no tuvo mucha cobertura, pero se los resumo rápidamente. Es una mujer inocente, falleció, fue asesinada durante una redada fallida. Bajo la administración de Biden, los responsables enfrentaron cargos. Pero bajo Trump, el Departamento de Justicia recomendó solo un día de prisión para uno de los oficiales involucrados. Un solo día, señores. ¿Ven la comparación? ¿Les parece que eso es justicia? A mí me parece complicidad. Lo que está pasando con el Departamento de Justicia bajo este mandato de Trump no es un tema menor. Hablamos de la destrucción de los frenos y de los contrapesos del poder. O sea, es el inicio de un modelo de gobierno donde el presidente no va a rendir cuentas y va a poder utilizar la ley como si fuese un garrote político. Hoy fue un fiscal. Mañana puede ser un periodista. Pasado mañana cualquier ciudadano que se atreva a alzar la voz. Por eso, señores, yo les pregunto a ustedes. ¿Creen que una democracia puede sobrevivir cuando la justicia se utiliza como arma personal? ¿Hasta dónde creen que puede llegar un presidente? No un presidente, este presidente. Si nadie le pone límites. Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias si es que llegaron hasta este punto. Recuerden apoyarme con un like, compartir este video con sus amigos y suscribirse a nuestro canal. Políticamente en desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.